Rex, what do you think? We've got a Dr. Liz in the house, and she's giving free therapy for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah, like I said, I hurt here at this. What do I do with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop pushing on that.
Doing that.
It'll feel better. Stop doing that.
That old Bob Hope skit where the guy has this fear of being buried alive. And he's like,
okay, tell me more. Stop it.
Oh, you haven't heard the skit? Bob Hope plays a therapist, and a guy's coming to see him, and he's like, I have this fear, this phobia. And he's like, oh, what is it? And he's like, well, it's I have this fear of being buried alive. And he's like, what do you think? He's like, well, I just have 2 words for you. He's like, should I write this down? He's like, well, you can, but you could probably remember it. Okay, well, what is it? He's like, well, stop it. And he's like, well, that doesn't help me at all. And so they talked for a few more minutes, and Bob Hope's like, well, I can add a little bit more to that if you'd like. And he's like, well, sure. He's like, okay, well, stop it or I'll bury you alive. So that was the skit, I think, back in the 80s with Bob Hope.
That's funny. Or older. That's clever.
Yeah. I liked how you said you should take steps before you go. Like you made that comparison to a cardiologist. Don't, if you're having a little chest pain, don't just go straight to the heart doctor. Go to the doctor first and seek out other resources and find things like that. And I remember early in my Jesse and I's marriage when we discovered, wow, marriage really isn't as simple as everybody plays it out to be. It's not like the movies. We had to seek out lots of different resources first, and then tried out some different therapists before we found somebody we really liked. And I like how you said, ask questions and be honest. I was wondering, have you ever turned down people? Have you heard any so crazy? You're just like, I can't take this.
Yeah. Sometimes I've not been available. Sometimes I have to refer if I'm booked. And sometimes I might have been relieved to refer. But, for the most, I think the older you get, the more you do this, I think the more you really have a good sense of who you can help and who you ought to maybe refer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and it just gives everybody, love, sweat, and tears probably. But I'm curious, Rex, do you mind if I turn the table on you? What made you and your Jesse like this therapist? What was it about the person that you both agreed like, oh, I like this. We both like this person and feel comfortable here.
It didn't feel judgy. It didn't feel like they were on either person's side. And we both kind of had to look at our flaws, and they were pretty good at pointing those out. That's what I really appreciated. I think you mentioned earlier being kind and what was it? Owning up to your
yeah.
I can tell you, whenever Jessie admits that she's wrong, I'm like, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, okay. It just it really diffuses situations.
It does. It's like, oh, thank you. Yeah, that's right. It's such hope, right? If my partner can see the role they play, then I don't need to say anything. It gives me such hope.
And I think that's a big thing for validation too. Then you feel heard, you feel valid, you feel like you can work something out because they're agreeing with you, or they're like, oh yeah, that wasn't the best thing to do, or it really does make it much easier to work and fix things. And that was the big thing for me early on when we got therapy, was just realizing, oh, I have an ego and it doesn't want to be wrong ever. It wants to protect itself and always have things its way. And that was a really big, huge thing for me, learning how to be more empathetic and just like, okay, this is just me defending myself for no reason. That was a big thing. I like what you said too, like about asking about religion, because that was a big thing for us when we got our therapy. Was we were in the Southeast in Florida, and I just felt a lot of times if we'd see therapists who were Protestant and Christian, a lot of the times the answer was just to pray something away, and I'm like, I love that, but I also need something more practical to put my hands on and to actually work with and, tinker with and fix, beyond that. So that was a big thing for us. And there were There was one therapist that's all they wanted to do. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. We got to find somebody else. And then we found another one, and it was a guy who I felt was too casual, and I just didn't feel comfortable with. And then, like I said, we finally found another person who was just great and helped us out a lot, and it was really good.
Liz, I'm curious. I have another question, Liz, for you. Did you ask where they heard about you? Is it the website? Is it referral? Like, hey, I heard, or is it like, hey, you're our sixth therapist, and we're just trying? Do you get people who have been to a lot?
Yeah.
How do they find you, or do you know?
It always makes me nervous. It's like, you're our last ditch effort, right? You're our sixth therapist. It's like, oh boy, I wonder what they think they're going to get for me. That might be different, right? How do I offer them more? So I would say that some come from the discernment counseling field, some come from Gottman, and some, I think the greatest compliment is when it's a referral from another couple. It's just hard to beat that. When a couple trusted you and had good results and they want to share with their friends. Nothing better. Nothing better.
Is it difficult to, like, I know, like, with relationships, there's a big stigma. Like, people don't want to admit that they have a problem with their relationship. Is that an issue you see a lot of in the first session, or?
I think that couples are pretty savvy today. I think we've done enough outreach, with the Gottmans and Sue Johnson, and really, I think it's become more popular than ever, actually, going to a marriage therapist. I think we're normalizing it more. I just think it's really hard to see our blind spots more than anything. But I see men and women equally wanting to come in, equally wanting things to be different. It's encouraging.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. Because I was curious if that was still a stigma or not. So
I suppose for some people it might be, but it's a really good day and age to be married because we know more than ever before about what makes marriage thrive. It's a good time to be married.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.